He was a Nazi, he was Hitler, he was Satan, he was a dictator, he was a racist, he was corrupt, he was a tool of the wealthy. The newspapers hated him. The entire comedy industry devoted itself to the singular task of mocking and discrediting him. His name? Richard Nixon, and Ronald Reagan, and George Bush again, and Donald Trump, and whoever comes after Trump. For almost as long as anyone can remember, leftists have reserved the right to dispense with reason in critiquing their political opponents, relying instead on biased personal insults. This is always true for whoever carries the banner of leader of the Republican Party, especially if that leader is also president. Sometimes these attacks work, as they did during the administrations of Nixon and both Bushes, and sometimes they become epic self-owns, as was the case for Reagan and Trump, whose legacies of peace and prosperity seem now like some forgotten golden age of legend. It doesn't matter when this tactic fails, just like it never matters when leftists fail at anything. In a matter of decades in the 20th century, they can spill more blood in the name of communism than the entire history of religious wars combined, and yet still criticize all religions for being divisive. Not learning lessons from their own mistakes is a leftist superpower. So when they start trying to make deals with their political opponents, you should completely ignore them. The true leftist motto is to take what they can, when they can, and by any means necessary. There are those on the right who think that now is the time to seek newer representation in other Republican candidates. Give Trump a rest and go with someone new. But to do so would only validate their scorched earth campaign to destroy Trump. Giving the media the ability to veto the people's choice of who they want to lead the country is a terrible mistake. It's not at all constitutional or democratic. Not to mention the fact that they're moron corporatist thralls. The only thing dumber than a journalist is believing the idea that the left will relent if we move on to a Ron DeSantis or another candidate. Not only does history show this to not be the case, but the present also shows it. Look at the unsubstantiated attack against Herschel Walker. Look at how they framed DeSantis' law to protect children as the Don't Say Gay Act. Look at what they did to Jennifer Ruth Green, a black Republican candidate for Congress in Indiana. Last week, in an attempt to victim shame her, Politico reported that Ruth Green was a sexual assault survivor. Jennifer Ruth Green is not running as a survivor of assault. How she deals with what she went through should have been her own private decision. She chose not to play up her victim status as a matter of personal pride and honor, a decision which is commendable. In an age where even someone like Meghan Markle, who married a prince from British royalty, had a massively televised royal wedding for the world to see, who now lives in a mansion in Southern California with private staff, even she complains about how unfair life is as a woman. Ruth Green's response to actual victimhood is a rare sign of fortitude. But in their article, Politico claimed it had obtained official personal records of Ruth Green's situation from the Air Force through an open records request, which Republican Senator Tom Cotton pointed out is illegal. You can't obtain details from someone's military personnel file unless the person in question authorizes it. When he asked the Air Force to explain itself, he received a response that is as common as it is horrifying. They never had a request. Fox News quoted the official denial. Quote, "We cannot confirm any documents on this individual were released by the Department of the Air Force under the Freedom of Information Act. In general, any release of information that, if disclosed, would invade another individual's personal privacy would be reviewed under exemption FOIA, with redactions made to ensure compliance with the law. Each document would be reviewed on a case-by-case basis," end quote. So, Politico lied. Why? Who is Jennifer Ruth Green to Politico? The answer? She's another Nazi, another Hitler, Satan, dictator, racist who is a corrupt tool of the wealthy. In short, she's a Republican. And just like Trump, his supporters rotting in jail, DeSantis, Walker, Vance, Boebert, MTG, and Lake, they do not deserve equal treatment under the law or even the simple consideration due most human beings, according to the left. Forget forever any foolish dream of ever appeasing anyone on the left. They are not now, just this once, being sincere when they say, anyone but Trump. Relenting simply isn't in their DNA. So when Republicans say, hey, you know what? It would be so much easier if we just didn't have Trump and we had a new candidate that would wipe the slate clean. We could start over with decorum and debates like it used to be. Oh my gosh, no! Wake up. Those days are over. Replacing Trump with someone else will not solve a thing. Don't get me wrong, I love DeSantis, and he's running for governor of Florida. I cannot wait to see him win and see if one day he is president. But pretending like the left's viciousness will stop with Trump is just naive. The left is out for blood. Like I said, their only principle is to take what they can, when they can, and by any means necessary. Anything they say to the contrary is a naked attempt at manipulation. They do not stop. Not on principle, not in the name of decorum, not for shame, not even for mercy. We aren't dealing with rational people here. The left is thoughtlessly boring their way through our country with one unchanging prerogative: eat what's good and leave nothing behind. Can't you feel it? Every trip to the store seems like it's harder and harder to make ends meet. You buy less and less and eat less and less. You find yourself going without it in order to provide more for your family. You start to do the calculus on the cost of gas. At which point will it be too expensive to go to work? And what do we do then? Now ask yourself, in this situation, do I feel more like the termite or the wood? Now take a look at fat cats like Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, and the leaders in big tech. Which do you think they are? They profited while they forced everyone else to stay home. You might think to yourself, I'm not worried, I'll move to a red state. We'll leave blue states behind and really show them. I absolutely love the idea of conservatives moving to red states, but what then? Leftists follow. They never give up and they never give in. It's not enough for them to keep New York City and San Francisco and give you the rural areas. No, they want those too. You live in Kansas? Well, they've already campaigned there. You live in Oklahoma? Leftists are targeting that too. No matter where you live, you have to contend with the fact that for the left, what they have is never enough. They always want more because their goal is complete and total takeover. To completely reshape America and strip us of our freedoms, no matter where we are. As conservatives, it's our tendency to mind our own business and be left alone. Keep your head down, pay your taxes, maybe even grow your own food, and let other people live and let live. But this is not the way of the left. You should know better. They don't stop. Leftists are out there right now looking for ways to corrupt your community, making it unrecognizable to you. They aren't satisfied owning the halls of government, multinational corporations, the media, big tech, medical centers, or the halls of academia. No, they want you. Look at Candace Owens. 2 weeks after the first trailer of her movie exposing BLM aired, she was contacted by the IRS and told to be prepared for an audit. Take a look at the news. 18 months after the 2017 inauguration riots in D.C., only one person was convicted of a felony, and the rest of the charges were dropped. It's a different story for conservatives. Not only haven't the charges been dropped, but 22 months later, the FBI is still making arrests, even with the midterms right around the corner. But that's just the appetizer. Ray's FBI has created a new database of violent extremists in order to catalog angry parents who show up to school board meetings to speak out against critical issues. Just the other day, the FBI arrested an octogenarian communist prison camp survivor who sang hymns at an abortion clinic. She's one of yet another slew of innocent Americans being targeted by the leftist state police. Under Biden, entire households are being emptied as whole families are being threatened with jail. The American leftist socio-cultural hegemony has created the largest class of political prisoners in this country since the British loyalists started disappearing the first American patriots. And yesterday, after raiding his home, The government is finally subpoenaing its greatest threat, Donald J. Trump. When I was thinking of what to talk about on the podcast today, I thought, is what I'm going to say, is that going to be too much fire? Then, when I saw what was happening to Trump, I said no. More fire. The left has gone off the reservation. But this shouldn't surprise us. This is who they are. This is who they always were. Unlike democracy and capitalism, communism is an extremely fragile system. A single person thinking the wrong thing can bring it all down, which is why they're so threatened. It's a system of rule more akin to the ancient Aztec ways that required constant blood sacrifice. For utopia, of course. Hip young leftists like to wear their communism on their sleeves as if the millions of innocent lives lost to genocide, mass starvation, and prison camps mean nothing to them. This is one of the consequences of their morally ambivalent, by any means necessary approach. You never have to account for your mistakes or your crimes. Leftists take nothing into consideration but their own narrow political ends. That's why we're careening directly towards nuclear war, while Biden is antagonizing OPEC, one of our last sources for oil. To be ideologically unaccountable means you never have to bother learning from your mistakes, which only leads to progressively bigger and bigger disasters. And you don't get much bigger than nuclear war. This challenge we face is daunting, but we can take comfort in the fact that it's not the first such challenge our great nation has had to weather. We, the people, have been down this road before. We fought and defeated leftist totalitarianism in World War II and the Cold War. Our current predicament is a mixture of elements from those, which is why our current movement is a combination of political and ideological, all wrapped into one. Historically, we're in good company. For direction in fighting communism, we can look to conservatives like Ronald Reagan, William F. Buckley Jr., Margaret Thatcher, and John Paul II. And for inspiration to break this oppressive, authoritarian system, we can look to people like the founders and the great crop of MAGA pundits who are blasting the internet today. Let the left continue formally rejecting these people I've just mentioned. They have no claim to their legacy and so cannot be their intellectual heirs. America has always stood on the foundation laid by these greats, and by that same legacy, she will rise again.